Well, hello everybody, and thank you very much for the time. And as Anne says, it's pretty exciting to be part of the skills panel following this afternoon's vote, where 70% of you said that it was the most important priority for LEPs over the next 2 years. So hopefully that will raise the energy in the room, and you will all be excited to hear what I have to say, which is really mainly about how well the work with all of the local enterprise partnerships is going. The work that we've done with you has got us now into 1,500 schools across England. That's almost half of secondary schools in 18 months, which is frankly a lot faster than any of us predicted. I'm going to talk a little bit about the diagnostic that we did that informs the work, where we've got to so far, and what we think the next couple of years could hold. But before I do that, I'm going to start with a pop quiz, as I think is now customary. So the question is, 4 encounters with the world of work reduces a young person's chance of becoming NEET by how much? Is it 6%, 26%, 46%, or 86%? Oh, whoa, there is 70% of you in this room who I am very attuned with. It is, in fact, 70%, as 70% of you said, 86% chance of being NEET. And that is an amazing fact, I think you will all agree. Just 4 encounters with the world of work reduce a young person's chance of being NEET by 86%. And 70% of you know that, and that's excellent news. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the Careers and Enterprise Company, why we were set up, and what we've done so far. So we were announced by Nicky Morgan about 2 years ago. We've been operating for 18 months. And the first question we asked when we were asked to try and solve the problem of young people transitioning into the world of work was, is there a problem of young people transitioning into the world of work? And we found what all of you will already know, that in fact there is, that youth unemployment is higher than adult unemployment, that it's actually an increasing ratio, so it's a higher percentage now than it was 10 years ago, and that is the same, exists at the same time that 750,000 vacancies exist in the country. So there are plenty of jobs in this country, but young people are not getting them. And in fact, there are only 680,000 young people who are unemployed, 750,000 vacancies. So if we were doing a better job of helping young people understand the opportunities available to them, there is no reason why young people shouldn't be able to get jobs. So we then asked the question, well, why is it? Is there actually any research that really would help us understand why young people aren't getting these opportunities? And we were very lucky because before we were set up, the Gatsby Foundation commissioned some research by Professor John Holman to look at what is the best practice in helping young people transition into the world of work. And he published a report called the Gatsby Benchmarks. How many people in this room know the Gatsby Benchmarks? Can I just have a quick show of hands? I'm going to call that 20%. And I would really encourage everybody in this room to look at that piece of work. It's incredibly helpful. It looks at international best practice, and this is what it found. It found that young people need 3 things to transition effectively into the world of work. They need encounters with employers with higher and further education to bring the world of work to life. They need information about how the curriculum links to jobs and about what the jobs market entails. And they need a plan tailored to their own personal passions and strengths. And this point on encounters that I've already emphasised is really very well researched. So one piece of research finds that young people who have more encounters with the world of work on average earn 18% more and are less likely to be NEET. And another, that if you have 4 or more encounters, you're 86% less likely to be NEET. And the reason that this works so well is because for many young people, imagining a career is like imagining a colour that you've never seen. It's almost impossible to think what it involves. And I'm sure that any of you would also find looking at a long list of jobs without actually having been into the labour market baffling. I find it baffling. And most of the jobs that people show me when they sort of read these lists of careers out that young people are asked to make decisions between, I have no idea what they mean, what they would involve. We have to get young people seeing the world of work. We need to bring it to life. The problem is it's not happening. So only in 40% of schools is a young person meeting an employer every year. And this is despite employers saying that it's really very important. In fact, 68% of employers say it's critical for young people to have work experience, but still only 38% of employers offer work experience. So we asked the question, well, why is it? If the evidence is quite clear, encounters, information, and a plan seems like a reasonably non-controversial prescription, why isn't it happening everywhere? Is it because nobody really cares? And we took the view that that's not the problem. The problem is that there's a kind of market structure failure. You have 4,000 secondary schools and colleges, you have millions of businesses, you have hundreds of providers like Young Enterprise, WorldSkills, all trying to work together and nobody helping structure that market. And as a result, you get inconsistent coverage, schools don't know which of the different providers to work with, and actually even when they start working together, it just all goes wrong because there's no one really helping schools and employers to sustain the relationship. And so we are trying to solve that problem. We are trying to become the sort of structuring agent at the heart of this system so that schools and businesses work together and the best providers get to scale. And we're doing this with you. So this is where we are so far. The most important thing we've done is built a network of coordination. And many of you will know all about this because you are co-funding this network of coordination. And what we've offered is that every school will have 1/20th of a coordinator. A well-paid person whose job is to know who are the local businesses, what are the local service providers, and to make that many available to schools. Simple as that, just to create some scale in this quite complex environment. We decided that they should be really high-quality people, so we want them to be paid $50,000, including on-cost. We've put in $25,000 for each of these people, and you, the LEPs, have put in the other $25,000. And we have 100 of these people now working across England. And really what these are is it's resource for you, the local enterprise partnerships, to use to create the infrastructure, create the scale, and create the transparency for schools about what the projects are locally. As well as getting one of these coordinators, or 1/20th of them, each school or college gets one business volunteer. And we've asked business volunteers to give 1 day every month. And the reason for that is that we want a sort of senior person in the mix who can really talk to a head teacher and be at the same level of seniority as the head teacher, or indeed the chief exec of a mat chain. And we now have 1,300 of these business volunteers, and more than 50% of them are at CEO or chair level. They're incredibly senior. And Roger Carr, I think, told a story about how somebody had written, Roger Marsh told a story about how someone had written in a local paper about how there was a terrible skills gap and that they were so sort of disappointed by what was going on locally. And I think the Leeds City region just wrote to him and said, actually, if you're so worried about the skills gap, why didn't you become an enterprise advisor? And that's exactly what happened. And I think that's exactly the right attitude for all of us to have. Stop complaining about the skills gap, come and help us solve it. Schools that have got one of these coordinators are 3 times more likely to have an employer engagement plan than those that don't. We've also scaled up what works, and again, you, the LEPs, have been working with us on this. We've made available £5 million of funding to scale up the best projects across England, in particular in the colder areas. And we've now got 79 projects that we've essentially verified as being really high quality, proven track record, in line with best practice. 75% of the funding has gone into cold spot areas, which I'll talk about in a second, and 250,000 young people are going to get benefit from the first fund, 25,000 from a mentoring fund that we've also run. And this is a really big breakthrough because it basically means that we can now say to schools and colleges, actually, of all the different providers out there, here are some that have been through a really tough process, that the LEP also really recognises to have value, and that we're going to prioritise when we come and see the schools and colleges locally and help them to start working with. And I was in Cornwall recently and visited a local school there, and they said, look, as a starting point, we're now doing the skills show locally. WorldSkills has run a skills show in Cornwall through our funding, and we're working with Future First, which helps alumni collect back into schools. And that's just kicking off a whole bunch of work in Cornwall, as an example. And we've focused our work on need. So we've done an analysis of the country, a cold spot analysis, where we've looked at a whole bunch of indicators that we think are good indicators of careers and enterprise need. And these include deprivation, employer engagement in schools, a range of outcomes like STEM, women doing STEM, GCSE results, apprenticeship starts, and also how well prepared employers say young people are for the world of work. And some of this data was at a local authority level, some was at a LEP level. We've put it all together. We've basically ranked the country, and you can see which of the areas that are the coldest. The darker areas are the coldest. So Cornwall is, in fact, right now our coldest area. And then you have a kind of cold sweep around the southeast, New Anglia, around Tees Valley and around the Black Country area. And the benefit of being a cold area is that much more of our funding comes to these areas. And the big opportunity that we have, and we were in Cornwall recently, and Kim Conchi, who's the chair of the chamber, said, look, this is the opportunity for us. Let's turn this area warm. We know what the indicators are that are cold. Let's warm it up. And in different parts of the country, people are using these indicators and really going after their opportunity. So in Worcester, actually a very warm area, but lower on apprenticeships, really going after that. And we are just seeing good practice spring up across the country. We bring our coordinators together every quarter so they learn from one another. But all across the country now, we are really hitting scale. In Leicester, in Leeds City region, in Liverpool, Coastal Capital doing brilliant work with SEND, the North East, as mentioned earlier, doing fantastic work with the Gatsby benchmarks, in Tees Valley, in the Black Country, in New Anglia, in Yorkshire, in D2N2.
You don't need to say all 38, but you've got 1 minute left.
So for anyone that I've missed, it's just because of Anne. At the same time, we're bringing lots of cash match into the system, and much of that has come from you in match funding our enterprise coordinators, but we've also doubled the size of the fund. We've got a fantastic ambassador group that combines business and education. And we're going deep in the opportunity areas. In opportunity areas, we're guaranteeing all young people 4 encounters with the world of work. Got a bunch of priorities for 2017. If you're interested in these, please come and see us. We're going to be at the table upstairs for the rest of the day. These are our principles. We want to test, learn and adapt, build on what works, work nationally, tailor locally, and make the most successful projects really successful. It all depends on your collaboration. We're really grateful for where we have got to so far, but we also think this is just the beginning of the journey. And so my big ask of you is please find out really what's going on in your LEP, champion it, help us get to scale. This is resource that we are making available. This is our opportunity to crack the skills problem. It's national and it's local, and it really all depends on your sponsorship. So thank you for all of your time, and thank you for your help. Thank you, Anne.